And now we're on Daf Pei Hayamid Beis. And we're talking about a case where a man, like a Kohen Gadol, violated an Isa Doraisa, marrying a woman that he's prohibited from, like an Almana. And the law is that Kansu also Ksuba. The Chacham left the Chiyuv Ksuba intact, and they would not impose a knas on her that she should forfeit and lose her Ksuba. And the reason for that is because we don't think that she's going to dilly-dally and try to avoid the get, because through this marriage she became psula, and not only that, her vlad will become pasul. It's not a healthy marriage. She doesn't want to stay in this marriage, and she's not going to delay. And therefore, the Chacham left her chiyuv ksuba intact, and she still has rights to ksuba. So why is it that the Chacham will mafkir the ksuba in the case where the violation was shnios, which only be divrei sofrim? And the answer is because there's no psul over here, neither to her nor to her children. So she doesn't lose anything by staying in this marriage. On the contrary, she gains, and she might as well collect a ksuba. And if mizonos is try ksuba, she's really got the best of both worlds. We don't want her to dilly-dally and avoid the get, and therefore we're going to impose a knas on her, and she will not receive her ksuba. So the point is that in the case of Shnius Arai, she is self-motivated to terminate this marriage because this marriage is not good for her. I'm sorry, wait, what did I just say? What I meant to say is, maybe I didn't say it right, is that after we impose the knas on her, then for sure, she's going to drop out of this marriage because she doesn't have any vested interest. She doesn't have any benefits from this marriage. Rabbi Omer Alolu Divrei Torah, in the case of the Reisha of Almana L'Kohen Gadol, it's a violation of biblical law. Divrei Torah ain't tzrichim chizuk. The Rabbanan didn't have to content him in order to make sure that he doesn't retain her and extend the marriage longer, but rather he'll divorce her. Because Divrei Torah ain't tzrichim chizuk, he realizes that this is not the way to do it. It's a constant violation of an Issa Torah. And since he's going to, in any event, leave the marriage, therefore, we're not going to consent her, and we can assume that she'll be very accommodating, and she'll leave the marriage. Because Divrei Torah ain't tzrichim chizuk. She realizes that this has to stop. However, halolu b'divrei sofer, in the case of Shniyas D'Rabbanan, Divrei sofer tzrichim chizuk. They are going to penalize her. The Chachamim will impose a knas on her that she shouldn't collect a ksuba, so that she doesn't dilly-dally in the marriage. Because Divrei sofer tzrichim chizuk, she's not impressed by the violation of Divrei. She's not running out of this marriage. We've got to give her an extra incentive to want to end the marriage. And therefore, they impose the knas on her. She cannot collect a davar acher. Now we have another explanation of the difference between a violation on a Torah level and a violation on a D'Rabbanan level. Ze margila, v'zu hi margila so. The word margila here means like to want to keep the marriage going. Or alternatively, it could be margila means guilt. That he, well, again, it depends on the two cases of Doraisa and Darabana. But in the case of a Doraisa, like Amana L'Kohen Gadol, Kohen Hedge, and Grusha L'Kohen Hedge, Margila means that he's the one who's trying to keep her in the marriage. She's not interested in this marriage because this marriage is a headache for her. It's causing her personal psul, l'kuhuna, and her children a psul, l'kuhuna, in the case of a violation of Doraisa. Why is this marriage continuing to exist? It must be that he wants the marriage. So therefore, he's royal knas, and we're going to cancel him and remove his rights to the ksuba. He's the primary gorem, the cause of the illegality, if there is such a word, of the marriage. But Zu, in the case of Shnias Larayos, he margila so. She's the one who wants to keep this marriage going because in the case of a violation of Shnios, she doesn't lose anything. Her zera doesn't become pasul. She doesn't become psula. She has no reason to want to terminate the marriage, to bring it to an end. She may dilly-dally and avoid the get. And in such a case, if she's the gorem, if she's the main source of guilt there for this illegal nesuin marriage to continue, then she deserves a knas. For first, the Gemara wants to know davar acher man ketanila. Who is the davar acher here? It's unnamed, an anonymous Tana. What was bothering him? And the Gemara has two lishonos. According to the first lishna, Ikadiyamri, it's Reb Shimon ben Elazar ketanila. So according to the second, it's going to be Rebbe. So let's go one by one. Reb Shimon ben Elazar ketanila. He's the one who added this davar acher. He's the one who started by saying Mipnesha hu pasal v'hi psula. He's not coming to add anything new explanations. But Ma Tam Komer, now he's explaining his original statement of Mipnesha hu pasal v'hi psula. Ma Tam Amru hu pasal v'hi psula. Why is it that in the case of Almana L'Kohen Gadol or Grusha L'Kohen Hedjot, Kansu Oso Ksuba, Neshu Margila, Umatam Shukoshavik Shera? And the answer is Kansu Oso Ksuba Neshehi Margila. So in the case of Shnios, she's the one who wants the marriage to continue. He wants to end the marriage. And therefore, they impose the penalty on her, and that is that she loses her ksuba. So according to this lishna, it's clear that we have a machlokas here between Rebbe and the lishna Basra, which is Reb Shimon ben Elazar. Ika Diamri. Now we have another transmission. Rebbe Ketani. Rebbe now is unsatisfied with his original explanation of the difference between a Dorais and Rabbanon, and therefore he suggests an alternative interpretation. So now the Dovrach is Rebbe himself. What was bothering Rebbe? Chalutza kakashil, for chalutza d'Rabbanon. The Isla Ksuba. How could it be that Chalutza is brought together in one breath with Grusha and she has rights to collect the Ksuba? What about the principle of Divrei Sofrim Tzrichim Chiza? And in this case, we're talking about Divrei Sofrim because a Chalutza was never prohibited on a Doraisa level. He writes here, Lefi hatam shama Rebbe hayu chachamim tzrichim liknos af es hachalutza, meaning she should be subject to penalty, and yet it says that chalutza is like Rucha, and he's the one who's getting the penalty. So it can't just be that we have a slice and a very clear-cut distinction between Doraisa and Rabbanan, because chalutza therefore would belong to the second category of shnios, insofar as it's Rabbanan, and she should be subject to a knas. And here it says, no, he's going to get the knas. He has to pay all the chiyuvei ksuba. Adar Omar, now Rebbe rescinds his original formulation, and he's on board with the Davar Acher, Kaven the Apostle of Rabbanan Zemar Gila, and Vizu, in the case of Shnios Arayos, he Margilas so. Now here we have a problem, because we kept saying that Zemar Gila means that he, the Baal, is the cause for this marriage, and she wants out of this marriage. Whereas in the case of a Rabbanan like Shnio, she is very happy with this marriage because there's no psul. So it must be that Chalitza falls somewhere in between the cracks. That even though it's a Rabbanan, nevertheless she is going to forfeit something by virtue of the fact that she's a Chalutza marrying a Kohen. And therefore she's eager to end this marriage. And therefore the knas is imposed on him because he's the gorim of the marriage, and that's called Zeh Margila, law with a mapikeh. So here's where Rashi introduces the issue of truma, that in the case of a chalutza married to a Kohen, she does not eat truma. In just a minute, I'll be able to tell you where this Rashi is. Just 1 second. You see, it says, Kavan de Posel La Midrabanon. It's about 15 lines down from the top. You see such a Rashi? Hadar Omar, Kevan de Pasala Mitruma Dirabanan. Rashi adds the word truma. It seems here from the footnotes that there are other achronim who say that Omru Chacham Shafhi Vizara Nasim Chalolit. If you want to understand why, in the case of Chalutza, she's eager to terminate the marriage, is because she becomes a Chalola and her children become Chalola. And yet Rashi says it's because she becomes enjoined from eating Truma. So that's a kasha they all ask on Rash. My ika ben Rebbe l'Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar. What's the difference between a distinction between an Isa Dorais in the marriage and Isa Shnios Rabbanon as opposed to Hi Margila or Hu Margila? Hi Margila so, Hu Margila. Amrav Chizda, Mamzeres Unesina L'Yisrael Ikabenayu. Mandi Omer Doraisa, according to Rebbe, who differentiates between Doraisa and Rabbanon Hanami Doraisa, Mamzeres is an Isur Torah. So we don't need to be kones her that she should lose her ksuva in order to get the marriage over with, because Divrei Torah Adam Tzrichim Chizuk. But Mandi Omer Neshu Margila, according to Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar, who says Zu Margila, Vizu Margila so. Ahi Margila le. In this case of a mamzeres to Yisrael, she's already a psula. So if she's already a psula, then this marriage is not causing her any harm. It's not generating any psul. She's a mamzeres. And no matter who she's married to, her children would be mamzerim. So therefore, she loses nothing by staying in this marriage, and he magila so. She is the gorem here to keep this illegitimate marriage going. Now, there's another element in this equation, and that is that there is a way, not the way I said it, that no matter who she marries, she's in the same brach because she's a mamzeres. She finally hooked a guy who was willing to marry her. But rather, this is based on Rabbi Tarfon that we discussed, who says Yecholam Mamzer Litayer through the mechanism of Shivcha Knanis, etc. So therefore, in the case of a mamzeres, she has a way of being metayer her children. So she already is a mamzeres. There's nothing to talk about. That's irreversible. But as far as the children, she can do that shtick of Rabbi Tarfon with a Shivcha Knanis, etc., etc. So therefore, she doesn't mind staying in this marriage. She's the cause, and therefore she's subject to Knas. The Gemara asks, Rabbi Elazar, the Omar Reza Everu Mamzer, meaning Rabbi Eliezer never accepted Rabbi Tarfon's principle of Yecholim Mamzer Litoyer, which means, according to Rabbi Tarfon, the child after the marriage to a Shivcha Knas is an Eved who could be now a full-fledged ger with the Shichur of the Adon. But Rabbi Eliezer rejected this. And therefore, the Vlad of such a marriage is going to be a mamzer. Is halo margalo le midi. She has no vested interest in remaining in this marriage. Her children will not become ksherim no matter what. Even if there's a marriage through shivcha, it won't make any difference. So it seems that this marriage is not on good shape, on solid grounds, because her Zara is going to become possible, and we don't accept Rabbi Tarfon according to Rabbi Lezer, and therefore, even in this case of a mamzeres, she wants out of the marriage. She's not the gorem to keep the marriage afloat, and therefore there's no reason to cancel her and remove her rights to the ksuba. So this nafkamina that we suggested cannot be reconciled with Rabbi Eliezer. Elam Rav Yosef, a different nafkamina. Machzir gushasa mishen nisei sika b'nai. Man diyomer doraisa hanami doraisa. Uman diyomer mipnei shehi margila ha hi margola le. But here there's no mamzerus, right? We saw the pasuk toeva, he toeva lo banei toeva. So therefore, there's no mamzerus here, and certainly there's no chiyuv karis in machzir gushos achas. And therefore, she's very comfortable in this marriage. It's a win-win. There's no loss whatsoever. And therefore, she's going to try to induce him to keep the marriage going. And in such a case, she deserves a knas and will be mafsir of the ksuba. You'll Rabbi Kiva, the Omar, yesh mams b'chayvilavim, holo margalale v'lo midi. Rabbi Akiva holds that in a case of Chayvei Lavin, like in our case of Machzir Gushos, the child is a mamzer, so she's not going to want to keep this marriage going, and her children will be mamzerim according to Rabbi Akiva. So once again, we have no nafkamina if we go like Rabbi Akiva. Papa, ba'ula lekoin gadol ika beinayim. Now we're talking about Iser Ese, right? Who Isha bibsulea yikach. And for that mitzvah asay, we derive an Iser b'be'ula. It's a lava b'machal essay, which is an Iser essay. And in the case of be'ila, she does not become a zona. Because to generate a status of a zona, we need a violation of an Iser lav. This is only a lava b'machal essay and has the status of an essay. Is mandi yom d'oraisa nami d'oraisa. But mandi yom ne'shehi margila, ha he margila la. Lay meaning him. She's going to force him, so to speak, cajole him to keep this marriage going because her children did not become psulim. And that's because there's only a violation of an essay. Now, all this is assuming that even Rabbi Akiva, who has mamzerus and psul call from a violation of Chayvei Lavim, he would admit that if it's only a Chayvei essay, it doesn't create psulei call and mamzerus. But the Gemara has a problem about chalola. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, the Omer yesh chol mi Chayvei essay. That even in the case of a violation of a Chayvei essay, like this case of a be'ula kohen gadol, even though it doesn't generate mamzerus, but nevertheless, it generates chalolus because yesh chalolus mi Chayvei essay. Again, we're talking about Chayvei essay of kuhuna, namely a be'ula kohen gadol. Is holo margalo levelo midi. If the ongoing marriage here is going to continue to basel hazera, she's not going to want to stay in the marriage, and therefore she doesn't deserve a knas to lose her ksuba. So according to Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, this is not a correct nafkamina. Elomar Rav Ashi machzir suffix sotaso ika beinei. Mandi omer doraisa honami doraisa. So if the Baal warned his wife with kinui that she shouldn't have yichud with so-and-so, and the Eidim testified that she had yichud with so-and-so, they don't know if she had be'il or not, the Baal is not allowed to have any relations with her until she drinks the mayim ha-ma'orim. And if he continues marrying to her and he doesn't want to divorce her, then according to Rebbe who says haloli divrei Torah v'divrei Torah ain't tzrichim chizuk, this is also doraisa. And therefore, since the Torah says v'nitma twice, it means that there's an iser sota l'baila here, and that's an iser doraisa. And therefore, in a doraisa case, according to Rebbe, we never impose a knas and remove her from the ksuba, but mandi yom neshu margila, he margala le. She's trying to keep the marriage alive. She's more interested in this marriage than he is. Because once again, she doesn't lose anything through this nesuin. She doesn't become a zona. She doesn't become psula kuhuna, because his bia is within the framework of an ishus. And her children are neither mamzerim nor chalolim. She wants to keep this marriage going. She's more interested in the marriage than her husband, and therefore she deserves a knas to forfeit a ksuba. Fekti Gemara, Ula Rabbi Masio ben Charash, the Omar, Afilu, even in the case of Safek Sota. Shaholach bailo lashkosa, ubale b'derech. He has a relationship with her, violating the Isa that's derived from a nitma. Asa'a zona. She becomes psula kahuna. He's holo margalevelo midi. She's not going to try to seduce him to continue the marriage. She doesn't have any interest in having be'ilah with him before she drinks the mayim, because if he will have be'ilah with her before she drinks the mayim, she becomes psula lekahuna, according to Rav Masya, because hasa zona. So now it comes out that again we don't have enough gemina, according to Rabbi Masya ben Charash, because according to him is hasa zona. And therefore, she doesn't want to continue this marriage or continue this be'ilah. Why should she deserve a knas? There are Edim that saw the bia. She's Asur al Baila with an Isur Lav, and she's Asur LeKohen, she's a Zona. And even if she won't have Be'ila with her husband, she's Psul LeKun, and Avlad is not a Mamzer. And he's even Kosher LeKun Kabenayim. Why is this enough community between Rebbe and Rav Shimon Elazar? According to Rebbe, who says the Beit Torah, etc., a Sota is also an Isa Torah. Therefore, there's no reason or rhyme or reason to be kone so that she should forfeit a ksuba. But according to Rav Shimon Elazar, zu zeh margila v'zu hi margila. So, in the case of Sota, she does not become a zona as a result of the be'ilah because she's already a zona because of the boel. Her children are not mamzerim or chalolim. And therefore, she wants to keep the marriage going, and therefore, she's royal knas. Okay, then this is where we'll stop here on the Mishnah on Daf Pehei Amud Beis. So I'll take this opportunity to wish you a great Shabbos, and thank you for a week of learning Daf Yomi.